Welcome back to another episode. Today, I am sitting right in front of me is this beautiful, gorgeous woman in a green power suit. Her name is Vanessa Bowen, CPA in terms of titles, but really, I think she's a money and mindset coach. She's the founder of Wellthy. Vanessa isn't just about saving receipts and budgeting apps, okay, guys? Because I know a lot of people do that, but she's truly on a mission to help women transform the way they think about money, the way they spend money, especially when it comes to entrepreneurs. With a rising of female founders starting businesses and getting their money up and building empires, I think this session that we record is truly going to hit home if you're a business owner and wanting to understand profitability and how to just increase your revenue and profits at the end of the day. So just to give you a little background, I'm going deep here, but I want you guys to know who she is. So she actually brings together, her background is in corporate finance, but with deep mindset and NLP work to help women heal their money stories, ditching the self-doubt and actually feeling confident managing and growing their finances personally and in business. I have known Vanessa for the last 5 years. We actually ran a small workshop together, and then she went and had a baby, and she's here powered back with new programs and new services that she's offering. But I'm going to get into that. But one of her new programs that's going to launch soon is actually specifically focused on helping entrepreneurs increase profitability. Guys, don't mind if I screw up on that word. It seems like it's really hard for me to say that over and over again. Not just how you can make money, but truly how can you keep more money in your bank account? So if you're building a business, looking at your numbers with dread, or trying to rewrite old financial patterns, this one is for you. Vanessa, welcome to the Wellthy Woman Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Huda. I'm excited to be here.
I know. Are we ready to dive in? Because
Yes.
I feel like I'm ready to learn.
We're so ready.
Okay, but first, before we get started, I just want to know, you're back. I see you online. I've seen your content, and there's this energy of power, ready to get things done. What season of life are you in? Truly.
Oh, yeah.
Cameras off, all authentic, raw and real. What
Yeah.
are you working on and what's working and where are you at?
I think I'm going to call it this comeback season because
I like it.
I don't know. That's a good word. We're going to roll with comeback season because last year was a rough year. I'm not going to lie. I think we don't really talk about what it's like to shift from CEO to being a mom. And so as, I gave birth to this beautiful baby girl and I'm like, okay, now I have to navigate raising her but also building this business. And so last year was a lot of what am I doing? What's priority? What's not? How do I create the balance? I definitely got burnt out a time or two, probably 3 times last year, because I didn't actually take a true maternity leave. I was how do I step back from the business?
Wait, you were working
Oh yeah.
while you had your daughter?
Yeah, I didn't take a true maternity leave. Only a couple of months.
I can relate. Yeah.
Yeah, lesson learned. I was oh, this be good. I got this. There's no big deal.
We could do it all.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
But anyway, lessons learned. So saying all that to say, last year was just literally trying to navigate and understand how do I be mom? How do I be CEO? But also what's the purpose of my business and what's the legacy that I want my business to leave? I think prior to having my daughter, my business was just I guess it was my baby, but it was just let's do this thing, it's fun. Let's be an entrepreneur. Yes, I want to help women, but I don't think I had that bigger vision of what the legacy was. And so having Aria, it just really made me think of what do I want to leave? When she sees Mintworthy, what does it stand for? And what does she think it stands for? And what's the legacy that this brand leaves? And so it kind of really hit me and it made me take this step back. And I had to question, what do I stand for? And at the time, Mintworthy was still part personal finance. And then we had transitioned over the last 2 years to bringing in the business finance aspect. But I was getting bored of the personal finance. It wasn't lighting me up anymore. I was so lit up about being in these businesses with these women who were just powerhouses and really making an impact, but they were struggling with the financial side. And so when this year started, I realized, no, this part of the business, women in entrepreneurship, helping them not just build a sexy business, but a profitable business that allows them to build wealth outside of the business. That is what I want to put my flag in, let's do this. That's the legacy. And so this whole journey, I would say all of last year really was the culmination of that. Which is why now you see this, I'm going to say the comeback season.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's definitely the comeback. We see it. But, you talk about like transitioning from personal finance to business finance. You said some keywords that I really want to touch on. But one of the things that I tell all our guests is when you come on here, we're obviously interviewing successful, confident, beautiful women that are building their own businesses. But what I truly want to hone down at the start of each episode is like, what are you actually working on? And as being as confident, beautiful, successful as you are, what are some things that you're improving and constantly having to navigate through that's hard on you too? Yes. Because we're all navigating something. And I think going back to, again, social media, highlight reel, all of that, bring it back to like what's real. So you keeping it real, like, hey, I was struggling when I had my girl, figuring out, and I'm sure it's not easy to pivot from a whole business model that you created to something else. So I just want to ask you about that. Like, what is something, I guess, that you're still working on and you're still figuring out as you're building Wellthy now?
I think I'm still figuring out how to be a good mom and a good CEO. I think I don't think I have that nailed. So please don't think I do. But I would say that's still a struggle in really understanding like where my priorities lie at different times. Like sometimes the business is priority and hubby is there to take it all, like he's mom, he's dad, he's everything. But then sometimes my daughter is priority. And so
can we just give a shout out to all the dads that really like, honestly, the guys that show up and are supportive and come through for us?
Yeah. I don't think we talk about that part enough. I think to your point, when you say, you see us out here as having this successful, or you see us as successful women running these businesses, you don't see what's happening behind the scenes to run the household and to run the family. So yeah, shout out to all the partners in the world who hold us down. So I'd say I'm still navigating that. And then I would also say just with this pivot of shifting to supporting women entrepreneurs fully with their profit, their cash flow, their revenue model, there's still, I would say, areas that I'm wanting to explore, because that's still a big like pie that can be explored. So I'm really exploring with my clients, like what's the areas that are their main pain points, and where can I like even just hone on my skills or like up level my skills so that I can actually support them in those key areas. So I think I'm ever evolving. Like I always like to keep going and like keep learning. Like I don't think you can ever stop unless you want to. But even like in this society we're living in, like everything's changing all the time. I know. It's keeping up with it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I like the fact that you use the word legacy. And when you thought about your business again and you said, I wasn't excited anymore and now I am, and I'm rebuilding and I'm back again. What is the legacy that you want to leave behind?
Oh, I love that question. Really, the vision is, I'll say it like this. I'll say it how I see it. I see so many women entrepreneurs who have these beautiful ideas, and I truly believe women can change this world. Like women with money can create change. We create impact. And someone said this to me the other day. It's not like women are out here like, I mean, we could have women building mics and couches and all that jazz, but like our businesses have impact. You know what I mean? Like we're not making nuts and bolts. Like we're always making impact. Like that's what our businesses are all about. And so that's great. But if we're not building profitable businesses, we don't make the impact. That's great. But if we're not keeping the money, then we're not even having the money to create the change. And so when I think of the legacy, it's if I can help women entrepreneurs not just say, hey, I started a business, but I built a business, because there's a difference between starting and building. If I could have them build that business, create the profit, but create also the wealth that they can then pour into their families and create generational wealth and create the impact and create the change. And I leave this world through this ripple effect that I create. If I leave this world just more meaningful than when I came, then that's the legacy. Because my husband said this to me the other day, actually. He was like, actually it was after I spoke at the summit that you and I both spoke at. He said, and I hate when he's right, but he said, you don't understand the impact you're making. I was like, yes, I do. But he's like, you thought you were going there to run a workshop or to speak on stage to help these women build profitable businesses. He's like, that's just the first layer. What you're not seeing is that each of them have a business that then impacts hundreds, thousands, millions of individuals on the other side of that business. And so if that business is not profitable, if that business shuts down, then there's thousands of people on the other side that are not impacted. And he's like, your impact is way more than just the front-facing women that you help and you support.
That's deep.
Right? I'm like getting chills as I'm saying it to you. He's like, it's the ripple. Like if you stop, you're literally stopping impacting millions of people that you'll never see, but whose lives you will touch through these women's businesses. And that, I was like, yeah, I know, right?
That's deep. We need to have him on the podcast. Coming down here. Right? But you know what? It's so true because, right now I see a sea of women wanting to create, build, and make more money.
Yes.
But I think if we saw it just a tad bit deeper than that, which is, do you know what this money and wealth will create for the next generation of women? Like you start here, but you make money, then your daughter has money, and then her daughter has money. And when you have money, you start the business, you buy that property, you change the world, you create a product. There's so much impact. So I think what he said really hits the nail on the head because that is so true. And that's such a beautiful way to like look back sometimes when you're burnt out and you don't want to do the work or you don't want to show up or you're like, when is this thing going to work? To be like, it's more than just me.
Yes, that's it. And that's the legacy. That's the legacy.
That is absolutely beautiful. Okay, let's change gears. I want to get into one of the things that I noticed with myself was that when I was getting into the money wealth space, that it was all just environment and mindset. And often you're not privy enough to have the environment because you don't know where to start. You're a homemaker, you're a mom at home, you started a business, but no real mentorship. So I really love the fact that you are specializing in that because I think every woman has a business idea and she's almost about to birth it. Even if she's scared, let's just say she does it. But I think the piece about staying the course of building the business and what that takes is a piece that I didn't learn. And I want to rewind back to mindset. And I know when we ran our first workshop and I said, hey, Vanessa, come in, do this thing. I was surprised because at that time I was still like learning about money and mindset that you said, you know what, we're first going to run this workshop all based on what is people's money mindset and where does that come from? So walk us through a 101 on a money mindset and where you work with clients. Where do you start off with?
Yeah, we start from literally the beginning of that foundation. And I think that's the part we don't talk about a lot. Like we all have a money story, every single one of us. And it's not just like one little story. It's an accumulation of deep rooted stories. And so whenever I start with money mindset, we literally start at the beginning because when it comes to our mind and our subconscious mind, especially between the ages of 0 to 7, like our mind is still in its subconscious state. So it's literally just absorbing. It hasn't built into full conscious awareness in order to interpret or analyze. And so everything a child sees, hears, or experiences between those ages literally gets downloaded directly into their subconscious mind. One of those things is money and how they see money or how they interpret money or what they hear their parents say. If their parents say, we can't afford this, or their parents say like, that's like the rich grocery store, like little small things are like, that's a wealthy car. This isn't a wealthy car, or this brand, or where they shop in the mall, the high-end stores, the lower-end stores, or even on the flip side, if they hear or see their parents save and invest, all of that is creating their foundational money mindset. And so whenever I do mindset work, we start with, how was your mother with money? How was your father with money? And then what money patterns from your parents have you inherited that you're living out of today?
Can you share a couple of similar money patterns that you see often with women?
Yeah, I would say for the most part, I'll say the majority, and again, this is not everyone, but for women, it's really deeply rooted in scarcity and our worth. And so when it comes to money, we don't feel worthy. We don't feel worthy of receiving it. We have to do something in order to receive it. It has to be transactional. We don't feel worthy just as we are to just receive money or receive abundance. So a lot of it for women is deep in our self-worth, deep into scarcity. Again, not feeling worthy, but also not feeling like I can say, hey, I'm worthy of this price, or this is my worth. I'm going to charge this. No. We have to make everyone else happy. So again, bringing it back to business, we lower our pricing, we offer discounts because we don't actually own our value. We don't own our worth. And so for women, I would say, just in the clients I've worked with, when you peel back the layers, because it's always layers, but when you peel back the layers, it comes down to our self-worth.
Yeah, it boils down to that. And then going back to when you hear people share their money stories about their mother and father, is there a common thing that you hear women say that they learned from their parents?
So it depends, yes. And it's funny because sometimes they'll pick up just from the dad, sometimes they'll just pick up from the mom, sometimes they'll pick up both. So they'll have like, I spend whenever like I'm emotional, that comes from my mom. Or whenever I'm like scared and afraid, I'll like hoard, and that comes from my dad. Or I'm just avoidant because that comes from my dad. And my mom was like really on to the numbers and all that jazz, and I'm like that. So it does depend on like what they were socialized with as a child. And I would say this too, it's not just the parents. Like, yes, we learn a lot from our parents, but I don't want us to go and blame our parents. But also it's society, right? Like how little girls are socialized around money versus boys. Like boys are always told like, you go get it. Like, you know, like go after that thing, go
get that money.
Yeah, go get that money. And girls are like, no, let's play dollhouse. Like, let's be submissive. Like, you know, and it's
even like, I remember growing up being like, oh, this is go do something else. This conversation is not for you, but in like our language, like, and you're so little that then when those conversations come up, you're like, oh, this is not for me. I'm just going to go sit and do something else. Right. Because you're not invited.
It's so true. And you just bring up for me a story from one of my clients. She had got her first job when she was like 15 or 16. And her dad literally was like, oh no, you're not responsible enough to manage this money. Every time she got paid, she had to give it to her dad. Like every time. And so here she was going through my coaching program in her early 40s. And she was like, no wonder why I leave everything to my husband. Like I never have had the authority or the ownership to be able to manage and own my money on my own. And so it's these little things that we think are small or that they don't mean anything, but they're literally creating who we are as adults. Like we think we're adults, but it's that 7-year-old still inside of us that's running our financial life.
I want to go back to what you were talking about, so the money mindset. So the first thing is kind of going over what the pattern of money is growing up. What would be the second, third, fourth?
So then the second, so once you understand how your parents were, what money traits from them have you inherited, the next layer is actually societal. So what money patterns from society have you inherited, or beliefs from society? A lot of my clients, you know, it's that belief, oh, I can't be wealthy without a partner. I can't do this on my own. I can't buy that property on my own. I need to have 2 incomes. So that's the second layer. And the third layer, which is, this is where we hit home, it's what's this money stories you've told yourself. So especially as women, we've just interpreted things, or someone has said something to us and maybe they didn't mean it, but we have internalized it as our truth. Or we tell ourselves, we're not good with money. We're not good with this is the one I love. We're not good at math. Not money.
Oh, definitely mine. Definitely mine.
And like there's calculators for that, right? But again, what have you told yourself that you're still living out of today that's blocking the financial wealth and abundance that you desire? So those are the 3 main layers.
What happens once someone goes through the money mindset kind of shift and they've identified this? Now, where do you see energetically women being once they do that?
I mean, besides being unstoppable, although I will say this.
Block.
Yes. Although I will say this too, it's not that, I always say this to my clients, money mindset work is a lifestyle choice. It's not like you just, dig through these layers and then you're healed. It's not like that. As you grow, as you go to different levels in life and entrepreneurship, there's going to be more blocks, or the same block that you had years ago just morphs into something else very similar. So it's not like we ever let go of our blocks, but what happens is you start to learn how to no longer live out of them. And so when they do creep up or you do feel them, you're able to shift real fast, and then you step into your true identity or step into your worth and move forward in that direction. And so the outside of that is women actually owning who they are and standing up for what they actually want to create and creating the things, whether it's the business, the money, the real estate, whatever it is. But it's them not allowing the blocks to hold them back and taking the ownership to create that life that they envisioned.
If there was a mindset shift, hack, tip, one thing that someone listening right now could apply, like driving or they're listening to this podcast when the kids are asleep, what could that be? Because I'm hearing you speak and automatically in my mind, I'm imagining all the money stories I've told myself. I'm even right now thinking about my parents and what they tend to say and society, what they tend to say. And we hear it all the time. It's so conditioned and almost like you don't even know when it's said because it's so normal.
Yes.
So what is a shift that you can share that women can start doing today, or men listening to this podcast?
Yes. One of my biggest hacks that I do personally and I teach my clients is creating a money manifesto. And this could be as big as or as long, small or as big as you want. Totally up to you. But try to make it not a whole storybook, okay?
Okay.
But you want to actually write out what's the vision for your life. And if you're someone who has a hard time connecting to like that future vision, just make it the next 12 months, okay? Because what happens most of the time is we set these goals, but then society, our economy, our bank account, how our business is actually doing, the realities of life get into our subconscious mind and block us. And then we forget or we don't actually connect to the vision. And that's what happens to a lot of my clients. It's like, well, how connected are you to this vision? Like, how often are you connecting to it? Not much. So the Money Manifesto allows you to actually connect to the vision, but also what it's doing is reprogramming your subconscious mind and your subconscious identity. So you want to just write out, like, what's the vision, either for your life or for the next 12 months. Write it out. Then you actually want to record it just on your phone. Nothing too fancy.
Like what? The what you made or yourself? Okay.
So like write it out.
Yeah.
And then record yourself saying it.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
And then if you want to like get a little fancy, you can find your money song on YouTube, like the
I
instrumental.
like the fancy one.
Yeah. And just have the instrumental in the background while you're saying your manifesto. So record it in your phone and just in your voice recorder. Say it. Have your money song in the background. Then what you want to do is listen to it every morning and every night. Morning, I always like to do it like right before you're starting your work day. Like if you are a CEO, an entrepreneur, like when you're ready to open that laptop, like, okay, we ready. We boss mode now. Like listen to it then. And then at night, if you can listen to it right before you go sleep, because then it downloads easier into your subconscious mind. But what it's doing, one, it's getting you every day to remember, like, what's the vision, to remember who you are, like who you actually are, who you're stepping into, not what your blocks are telling you, not what the stories are telling you, not what all the money stories are telling you. It's getting you to connect to who you are. But then what it's also doing, what you're going to realize is you start actually acting in alignment with it. And so many of my clients have actually manifested exactly what's on their manifesto because they're literally energetically aligned with that vision. Because how often are we really aligned energetically with our vision? Not much, because we're not connecting to it. So this allows you to really just shift subconsciously, also at an identity level, but allows you to actually draw in the things that you want to into your life.
I think I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
That sounds really great. And it also allows you to like think about your life, which you don't get a chance. I think the only time you do that is at the end of the year when you're putting together new goals. But imagine if we did that every few months or weeks to just like look back and listen to that. What is it called? The
Money Manifesto.
Money Manifesto. I'm going to implement that. I really like that. I was also going to ask you, shifting from personal finance to entrepreneurial finance, what is the difference? And what problem did you see reoccurring that made you shift into the business finance?
In terms of what's the difference, there's a lot, but I'll say
really quick, I just wanted to add because I almost think like if you're a business owner and you're sole proprietorship and you're just running a business on your own, it kind of falls into personal finance. That's why I just want to make the difference of what it is.
So what I always say is even if you're a sole proprietor and even if you've only made $1, you got to treat your business like a business. So even if you're a sole proprietor, you should have a separate business bank account. You should literally, every dollar you make from that business should not go into your personal account, should go into your business account, because you can never outperform your identity. And so if you, I love the way you looked at me.
Repeat, you can never outperform your
identity. And so if you're starting your business, let's say as a sole proprietor, but you're treating it as a hobby, your identity is a hobbyist, not a CEO.
Wow.
And this is all subconscious. At the subconscious level, you can never outperform your subconscious identity. So who you are is who you are. You may have heard that saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. Right? So that's what it's basically saying. You can never outperform who you are. So if you're starting your business and treating it as a hobby, and you're saying, well, I want to have multiple 6 figures, 7 figures, you don't have that CEO identity. So you won't ever be the CEO or build your business to that level unless you let go of the hobbyist identity.
But what if it is a hobby or it is a part-time business, or you finally started that business, you've got a full-time job?
Yes.
How should you be viewing it?
I would view it as you're a CEO, even if it is a part-time, even if it is starting as a hobby. Don't tell yourself that. Like, don't. Why is it not a legitimate business? Sometimes as women, I hear my clients say this, well, I'm only making a little bit of money. Why do we say little? You're making money. We're the ones that put this attachment of little, big, small, hobby, not. It's a business. In my eyes, it's a business. I don't care if you're doing it part-time. I don't care if you're doing it at 3 a.m. in the morning. It's a business. And when you legitimize it as a business in your mind, you show up differently.
That's so true. You hit the nail on the head. It's almost like you are allowing yourself to say what you're scared of, because when you start a business, you go into the intention of I'm starting a business, but most often, especially if you're just a solopreneur, you kind of introduce yourself as, oh yeah, I just started a little thing. Yes. You don't give yourself the credibility that you potentially are going to earn, even if it's $1
Yes.
that came from you generating an idea, a business, versus just someone paying you. Made that dollar on your own.
Exactly. And that's why even women who have 6-figure businesses still feel like they don't feel legitimate. They still feel like, I'm still just kind of hoping and praying this thing's going to work, because they've never actually shifted the identity.
There's something that you said in there, which I think you probably have like a whole framework around. But when you said, if you start a business, open up a separate bank account and every dollar should be accounted for. Let's just say you start a business, but every dollar that comes in, you need it to survive and live. How do you do that then?
So hopefully at that time, you've got something else that's going to cover your monthly expenses. If not, then I would really get real on how you're making the money in your business. And this is where it comes to profit.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Because if every dollar comes in and every dollar goes out, yes, it might be that way at the start, but this is where you need to be looking at, okay, how am I generating money? And am I generating it in the way that's the most profitable? Even if you're just starting out, no matter what you're doing, there's likely 2, 3, 4 ways that you can offer something, depending on what, your little niche is. But there's a few ways that you can offer something. Are you choosing the most profitable? Are you choosing the one that still allows you to hide behind the scenes, just kind of like dabble it a bit? Are you actually choosing the thing that's going to make the most money? Because that's going to help you to get out of that like feast and famine where money comes in and money goes out. If you're pouring yourself into the offer that's the least profitable, that's how you're going to roll. But if you actually have that CEO mindset, not the hobbyist mindset, you'll look at, okay, here's all the things I can do, but what's going to bring me the biggest profit? What's going to allow me to have more money in my bank account at the end of the day? And then you want to double down on that, because then it's going to give you the money to be able to pay yourself or do the other things or reinvest back into the business for it to grow. But you got to focus on what's going to be the most profitable. And I think that's sometimes the thing we miss, especially starting out. We're like, oh, this part feels fun, or like, I love to do this. Is it really the most profitable though?
Do women think about that when you coach them, or are they just, starting something they thought was an idea and just running with it without dissecting what they're doing and what they're offering?
I would say, I think by the time they come to me, they've figured out what does make them money. They may not be focusing on what's the most profitable. And I can quickly share a story.
Yeah, please.
I think this is so relatable, because I don't think, to your point, we don't look at our revenue model, is what I'll say. So one of my clients, when we started working together, she was like, I'm making money. She was making multiple 6 figures. Her profit was just shy of 100K. But she's like, I'm working hard and I feel like I should have more money for all the work that I'm putting in. And so when we looked at her profit and loss statement, she was profitable. Good. Great. So then we went down a deeper level and we looked at her different offers. And she had like 3 core offers. So I started to dissect each one of them. We got to this one particular offer, and what she does is she teaches people how to spin yarn. So it's a very niche market, right? Very cool though. But this particular offer, how it kind of rolled out was that every month she would mail her students a specific type of wool from like a different sheep breeder, and then a specific technique that aligned with that wool. Really cool, right?
Very cool.
Yeah.
Multiple six figures in.
Yes, I know.
Wow.
You can make money from anything.
Yeah, I was just going to say anything's possible.
Yeah. And she's an ex-professor, like a university professor. So this did start as her hobby, her side gig. Now that she's retired, it's her full-time thing. But this particular offer, she would ship these kits out every month. When I dissected it, it was making probably like 200, 300-ish K in revenue. But when we looked at the cost, it was cost heavy. She had to buy the wool from the different breeders, and it's a different wool every month. She had to actually store that wool. So she needed like a studio. So she had to take on this monthly rent for this studio. The wool had to be dyed so it could actually, be put into something pretty. So she had to buy the dye. She's the CEO, so she's not going to be in the studio dyeing the wool herself. So she hired a part-time employee who's on payroll. That person was responsible for receiving the wool, dyeing the wool, packaging it, and shipping out. Another huge cost was the shipping costs every month to her students, somewhere in the States, somewhere in Canada. So when we added up what it actually cost to run the offer was actually operating at a loss of $30,000 every year. But we couldn't see that looking at her profit and loss statement because overall her company was profitable. But she had this one offer that was draining money from her bank account. And so what she now has done, she's in the process of restructuring the offer where she's making it BYOW, buy your own wool or bring your own wool. So now the students will have to be responsible for buying their own wool. She'll still show them the technique, but now she doesn't need to buy the wool. She doesn't need to buy the dye. She doesn't need to rent the studio. She doesn't need the part-time employee. So now this offer has now become highly profitable. So I'm saying all that to say, to your question, do women look at this level? That is the gap that I'm noticing with my clients, is we're not actually assessing the profitability of our offers. We're just putting things out there, looking at the bottom line and saying, yay, we're profitable, but not realizing there could be things that we're doing that are actually draining money from our business, but they're hidden with all the other profitable offers because our other offers were highly profitable and was just masking what was actually draining the money. So here she was working her butt off and wondering why she wasn't making the money she desired. Well, that's why.
And you just increase that by zooming into the offers that are already there. Can you talk to me about the business side of finance? So if there is a woman that is currently, 2 years in her business, she's got something that's working, where do you step in and what does your program or teachings teach an entrepreneur about money and profitability? Because I know when we chatted very briefly, you were talking to me about just revenue and profitability and kind of breaking that down. Can you walk me through that?
Yeah. So I like to go in and tear businesses apart.
Okay. Stay far away from me. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, if we want to make money, we sometimes have to tear it apart. And that's what I did with that previous client. But what I really do like to look at is your revenue model, because that's the top, right? How are all the ways that you're generating money? What does your revenue model look like? But then we go into one part, your pricing. Are you actually priced for profit or are you priced for comparison?
Okay, before you go,
Yes.
are most women priced for profit?
No.
So there's a problem right there.
There's a huge problem. And this goes back to the mindset piece. They don't feel worthy. They don't feel worthy of charging their worth. They're pricing for comparison. Oh, okay, Huda and I are doing the same thing. This is what I think she's charging. I'm going to charge the same thing. Or, oh, this amount seems like everyone could afford this, so I'm going to charge this amount. But they're not actually running the numbers to see, is that actually going to be profitable for you? Or are you going to run that, like my client, run that offer at a loss? Because if you're running things at a loss, every dollar you make is literally draining, in my client's case, 30 cents from her bank account. So are most women priced for profit? No. So when we're looking at your revenue model, that's like the first layer we look at is your pricing. Because if your offers aren't priced for profit, you're running a hobby. You're not running an actual business. You're not making the profit. You're not building the wealth. You're working more than you were in a 9-to-5 and you're calling yourself a CEO. It doesn't add up. So we look at your revenue model, we tear it apart. We look at your pricing. We look at where you're leaving money on the table. Sometimes, we're actually literally leaving money on the table. We're not looking at what's the lifetime value of my customer. If I get them in for this one thing, how do I keep them in my world? How do I sell them to the next thing or the next thing? Or are my customers or my community, are they asking for things that I just haven't offered, and I'm sitting on money and they're like dying for me to put this one thing out and I'm not? So we look at like where you're leaving money on the table, and that helps us to basically tear your revenue model apart and then piece it back together so that it is actually profitable. But then we get to the profit level and we look at like, where are there leaks in your profit? Like, where are you maybe missing out on those money opportunities? Where are you not capitalizing on visibility or your exposure? Like, where are you just like shying away when you could literally be putting yourself out there and making more money?
One of the questions that I had was, where do you see often money slipping through the cracks in early stage business? Is there a certain area where you find that money usually slips through?
So definitely a lot in our, I'll say, subscriptions. Like, we're just paying for things in our business and we're like, oh, I know I'm going to use this one day. Either subscriptions or like courses and training. We're like, oh, I need this course, or we're on Instagram and this ad's popping up. I'm like, I need this and I need this and I need this. So most women entrepreneurs have, I like to say, they have those, those welcome emails. They're like, hey, welcome to this course. They've got all these welcome emails in their inbox collecting dust. So because also it goes back to mindset, we feel like sometimes as women, we need this extra course. We need this credential. We need these extra letters after our name to feel worthy or legitimate in our business, or feel like I can talk about this thing, or I can transform my clients. So that is definitely a huge drainer for women entrepreneurs. We're buying all these courses or investing in these things, but not ensuring that our investment gets an ROI. It's okay to invest in a course, but you got to go in the mindset, if I'm going to invest $3,000, $4,000, $10,000 into this course or this program, I need an ROI in 6 months, in 3 months. What's my ROI going to be? If this course is teaching me how to get a client, okay, 3 months, I better have a client. But we're not doing that. We're just signing up and we're like, oh, I hope and pray this is like going to change my world and change my business. It doesn't always work like that. So that's a huge drainer. And then I would say, just again, those money opportunities, we're leaving money on the table. We're not looking at what are our customers asking for. We're not, again, extending that lifetime value of the customer. If your customer's only coming in once, you're constantly having to look for new customers. That's draining. That's exhausting.
That is true. It is very exhausting. What would you suggest for someone that is running? Because I see a lot now, a lot of coaching businesses, a lot of program-based businesses, a lot of women getting into digital products, some service, some product. Are there standardized kind of implementations that you feel we should all have?
I wouldn't say there's standard, because I would say every business is different. But if you, like you said, if you think about like coaching or like course type businesses, like there's definitely levels. Like you could have the low ticket digital that then leads them into a lower ticket self-paced group coaching program, which then leads them into a next level group coaching program, which maybe has some access to you, which then leads into maybe a mastermind, which is more like one-on-one and more detailed access to you. So when it's courses and coaching, I think there is kind of a particular trajectory you could definitely lead your
And that same
clients into.
customer could follow you through.
Yes.
So you're not you're always acquiring new in every business.
Yes.
It's important, business development, but sustaining that customer and creating products that align with making sure that customer follows through the journey.
Yes, exactly. Because depending on where they're at, like they can come in at different points. But if you start, when you think of your actual ideal customer, like where they typically start, if you can meet them there, if that's aligned with your business, meet them there and then continue to grow with them. And then once they've kind of, let's say, gotten to the end, then they always would probably want to continue to work with you. So maybe it's just a membership component, and that's how you keep them in for however long.
What would you suggest, like when you first start working with someone and someone says, look, here's my business, I want to increase my revenue and my profitability, where do you start and what would you suggest?
So the first place I start, which is the place that they probably don't want me to start, but I actually look at their profit and loss statement. And a lot of the times, depending on how they have their business finances structured, they don't have a profit and loss statement. So we have to create that. But I like to start there because that tells me in one snapshot, I can see everything about that business. I can see how it makes money. I can see where it's spending its money. I can see if it's profitable. I can calculate the ROI on its marketing spend. Like I can literally see the whole health of that business in that one screen.
And if they don't have it, you'll create one. with them.
Yes, I'll help them. Or depending on how they have their business finances set up. Like one of my clients, when she came, she had a bookkeeper, but her bookkeeper ghosted her.
Bookkeepers goals too? What's going on?
Yeah, that's another story. So I actually had to help her find a new bookkeeper. And then we had to wait for that bookkeeper to basically do 6 months of bookkeeping and catch up before her and I could actually start. So depending on how they have their business finances structured, either we'll create it together. But most of my clients are more seasoned in business.
Okay.
So they usually will have either their own bookkeeper or they were doing their bookkeeping.
Some sort of.
And they just stopped. So then they have to go back
Wink,
and
wink.
do it. Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, even for example, in my business, right? Like if I take it as an example, I run a travel company and on paper, highly profitable.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wouldn't say highly profitable on paper, large revenue. Profitability is not
Right.
ideal for that size of business. And I think when we were talking in conversation, you said, nowadays online, there's a conversation around 6-figure businesses. First of all, let's just get something right. Based on our economy, 6 figures is not even enough.
No.
So boosting and bragging about 6 figures, it's almost like you need to make that kind of money to just survive. But if we were to tear it apart from a social media perspective, and when you look at other female entrepreneurs claiming they're making multiple 6 figures, what is the truth behind that? And what do you see?
The truth, and I'll just speak from the clients that I've worked with. The truth is that yes, 6 figures in revenue, no to 6 figures in profit. And one of my clients said this to me recently, and it really hit me hard. She's like, I just want the inside of my business to look like how everyone sees it on the outside. And she was literally in tears when she said that, but that's the reality, right? It's so easy to show your Stripe screenshots or say, I have a multiple 6-figure business in revenue, but what does that actually mean in profit? And what I've seen in the clients that I've worked with, especially over the last year, they're not making 6-figure in profit.
When I say why, is that going back to just not having the right offers, the right services?
I would say it's a mix mindset from the beginning, because they're either not charging their worth, they're dealing with imposter syndrome, they're not putting themselves out there, then offers. Whether their offers are not priced for profit, they're leaving a lot of money on the table. One of the big gaps when it comes to pricing for women is we don't actually incorporate the actual full time that we put into the offer. Like, are we actually calculating how much time we're putting in and actually giving ourselves a value for that? Typically, we're not. Like,
No.
if we have a one-on-one coaching program, we're thinking of, okay, we have this one session together, but we're not taking into account all the back and forth we do. Or let's say I was a coach, the back and forth I would have to do, sending that client the onboarding, them sending me everything, me reviewing their profit and loss, going through all of their financials, like all of that's time. I have an hourly rate. Like, where is that captured? And so that's a big gap where women entrepreneurs are not pricing or taking into account all the time that they put in. So when going back to your question of why aren't they hitting the 6-figure profit, pricing is a huge one. They're leaving a lot of things on the table, a lot of money on the table, and then they're constantly chasing for new clients instead of seeing how they can actually maximize that value of that one client. And so the reality is, yes, we're making someone said this to me the other day, hitting 6 figures in revenue is easy. Like, when you really think about it, once you've done it, you realize, oh, that was easy. That's not what the issue is. It's actually hitting 6 figures in profit. And it's easy to look revenue rich, but you have to actually be making genuine profit, because if you're not having the profit, you're not paying yourself enough to survive in this economy. You then don't have the additional cash to invest in real estate or the additional cash to pour into your retirement fund or put your kids through school. Like, you're literally still living this paycheck to paycheck life because you don't have the profit.
Yeah. And also I think like we start businesses so we can have more freedom.
Yes.
And, we talk about you start the business for more freedom, but then you're working more hours than you did at your job.
Yes.
I say to that, if the business is truly not just a passion, but has purpose behind it, you'll always have that fire in you to keep working and building. But most entrepreneurs get burnt out in that middle. right? It's revenue rich, not enough profit, not profit rich. I love what you said over there. How are ways that entrepreneurs or female founders listening to this not avoid burnout? Because I think it is a part of business. I think we're, now in this era, everything should be picture perfect. Like, don't work too hard, don't hustle too hard, don't, make sure you don't burn out, and make sure you take care of yourself. What do we do first? What do we do last? What do we do, period? So do you find that you get a lot of females that you work with that are burnt out and maybe they have to pivot their business? I guess my question is open-ended to you. What do you see with that, the whole burnout, building a business?
Yeah, I think we've all experienced it. And I'll say, I think when we started, I shared like last year for me, I definitely got burnt out twice. And I've seen that a lot with my clients. Like, they're working so hard because they have to make the money. But if their business was positioned even just a small amount to be a little more profitable, they could have the time and rest. One of the things I'd say I've personally been implementing, I've gone back to just having more of a deeper mindset routine. I think for me, that's just it's so important. It's just necessary. But even actually yesterday, I was having a conversation with these two women that I'm in this mastermind with, and we were talking about like how we were actually talking about the summit, how I had to do the summit 2 days, but so Saturday, Sunday, but the way that I had my week structured, I didn't have rest incorporated because I already had that week already planned out. And so when we talk about burnout, one of the things that we can do as CEOs is actually plan that rest. Like, when we know we're going to be on, like, actually like put that day off in your calendar. But even in the day-to-day, like yesterday, I had a client session and I was like, you know what? I need to actually have some time for me. So after that client session, I went for a walk. So even after your day-to-day, when you're on or you have to like pour in, just taking that time to just like decompress, meditate, whatever it is, go for a walk. But I think that is so needed literally in your day-to-day. But one of the things I've implemented this year, which I love, it's from this book, 10X is easier than 2X. I don't know if you've heard that book.
I've read 10X, but I haven't read this specific one.
This is different. And this is not like the Grant Cardone 10X.
Okay.
This book will change your life.
Really? Who's it by?
Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And when you asked me earlier about this season, I'm in this comeback season. A huge part of this comeback season was the fact that I read that book at the end of last year. And it had literally shifted how I look at my business and how I want to build my business.
I love the recommendation. I wrote it down. Thank you.
Okay, good. It was a life changer, like life changer. But one of the things he talks about is having your week structured to have buffer days, focus days, and free days. And I've implemented it, and oh my gosh, it's game changer. And I've only been doing it for like 2 months. But basically, your focus days are your days where you're like working on the business, like no meetings, completely focused. Your buffer days are days where you have the meetings, or maybe you've just got to do some like admin stuff or operational stuff, but then you have free days. And your free days, you do nothing.
Can you share with me how you've implemented that?
Yeah.
So is that over a course of a month or a weekly schedule?
A weekly schedule. So for me, Monday and Thursday are my buffer days. So every Monday is where I try to stack as many meetings as I can. So if it's client meetings or external meetings. So if you looked at my booking calendar right now, you're only going to see time open Monday, Thursday. Sorry, if I don't have the availability, I'm not available till next week or the week after, whatever that is.
I like that, yeah.
So Monday and Thursday are buffer days. I have my meetings. And then Tuesday and Wednesday are my focus days. So I have no meetings, and literally it's just me in the business. So if I'm working on the new program or creating like the new blueprint or whatever that is, like that's just me head down in the business. And then Fridays I keep as my free days. So Fridays, I try to keep the entire day free just for me, or I will intentionally put on that day, like actual like in-person like coffee dates or like people that I actually want to build relationship with. Because that for me, like that pours into my soul. So like last Friday, I had like 3 coffee dates. Because that for me, although it
counts almost like it's like a free day, but it just adds a little pep to your step. Like grab coffee and you're not like overly stimulated by all the things that you got to do like that. Yeah.
No laptop, no work, no emails, just literally connections.
Yeah. Entrepreneurs that are solo again, like running everything on their own, right? Like there's majority of people that are running their businesses. They're the CEO, they're the accountant, they're like the admin person. What practices would you tell someone to put in place if they are a new business owner, 1 to 2 years in, they're handling everything? I think the schedule really, really helps, because I think that's what I did personally. Even now, like my podcast days are, Mondays and Tuesdays, for example. But it's hard because in my case, for example, if a guest can't show up, I have to, and I find that we tether a lot with our own schedules. It's never really firm. We're like, you renegotiate yourself out of.
True.
So are there any helpful tips that you've seen founders and business owners that are just running around doing everything?
Yeah, I would definitely say honor the boundaries as much as you can. And to your point, it can get difficult. Like, it's Tuesday, I'm here, but this is important to me.
Isn't this your focus day?
This is supposed to be my focus day, but I do anything for Huda. It's true. Like, to your point, it's not going to be perfect, but you choose what's important. And so if I'm saying yes to something that's on my focus day, I need to decide for me that, like, this is important and it's worth it. If this was not worth it, I would tell you, sorry, you know that. But this is important to me. And so I'm okay to adjust the focus day. I think where sometimes we fall short as women, we're constantly shifting and constantly like, okay, I'll make this exception. I'll make this exception. I'll make this exception. I heard this once when I was first starting out, and it has always stuck with me. Not everything is an opportunity. Some things are a distraction. So I'm always, whenever I'm given, I'll say, an opportunity to shift my schedule, I ask myself, is it an opportunity or is it a distraction? I ask myself that before saying yes to coming here for today. Is this an opportunity or is it a distraction? This is 100% an opportunity. Like, this is a yes for me. But if it's a distraction, I say no. And I think we have to have that discernment as CEOs to protect our business, but also protect ourselves from burnout. And one of my mentors, she said this one time, she's like, you got to learn to increase your no factor. And that has been huge for me this year with pivoting, especially away from the personal finance, because part of me was like, well, I could easily do this. Like, it's, I could easily make money off of this. I could say yes to these things. But literally, I've had to say no to so many speaking engagements that were all about personal finance. I've had to say no to other opportunities to do partnerships with brands that were just on personal finance. I'm like, no, I have to increase my no factor. And so you know what that is for you, and you have to decide what that is, and you have to stand firm in your boundaries. I'll say that. And there was one other thing I was going to say.
That takes a lot of guts too, right? Saying no to opportunity that doesn't align. It is still an opportunity, but like you said, for example, shifting your business from one to the area, but all these things are coming. How do you say no to a shiny object? Yes. Or even if it involves like a transactional payment as well, right? Because it's money at the end of the day. So I think that is all mindset and knowing and being very, very clear on where you're headed. I think that plays a huge part in being able to say no, because I will tell you, like turning 40, I realized that it's taken me a really long time, and like any other woman, to repeatedly say no, and the sentence ends there.
Yes.
It's a sentence.
Yes.
It's not it. But, and it goes on. I don't need to explain. But a lot of women are still stuck there, right? Especially when you're a small business owner, you're saying yes to every opportunity. So I think I like your qualifying questions. I think those are great to ask. And that was my question. Like, how do you know if this opportunity is for you? What do you say yes to and no? I want to hear your thoughts on something. As a business owner, I have found that I've spent many years doing non-money making activities, right? And that goes back to, I guess, the scheduling, where what makes you money, focus on that. So if you are a business owner and you need sales, whether that be a service or a product, spend your time selling, whether that's making the cold calls. But if you're going to get bogged down with 1,000 other things, which happens all the time, you need to understand what the payoff is, right? Then the business builds slower, or you don't make enough money, or it's 3 years in and you're still like struggling. What are your thoughts? Do you see that with your clients and like women just in general in business? Are they spending a lot of time outside of not money-making activities?
Yes, I think it's a common trend. Also because sometimes the money-making activities are hard. And if it requires you to put yourself out there and to be seen And I would say a lot of my clients, like that's the struggle, right? Like, I don't want to be seen. Like, what are people going to think about me? So sometimes those money-making opportunities are really triggering. So it's easy to procrastinate in everything else. And when it comes to mindset work, whenever you're procrastinating in something, that's actually a trigger that you have a subconscious fear. So if you're procrastinating in like, I don't know, writing this email or this sales copy or whatever it is, everything's got to be perfect in this and that. Ask yourself, like, what am I actually running away from and what am I actually fearful of? Because all your procrastination is literally rooted in a subconscious fear. So yes, I would say that is very common. The sales activities, as much as we want the money, like sometimes they are really triggering or they're hard, or also sometimes my clients are dealing with the past failures in their sales attempts. So let's say they had a launch and a launch didn't go well. They're still living out of that. They're still like, okay, I'm not good at launching, or I'm not good at like getting clients. It's hard to get clients. And so they're living out of those blocks. It's hard to get clients. Why should I put myself out there? I'm not going to get clients anyway. And so they don't do those activities. So also part of it is your mindset and your blocks around building your business.
What are you seeing? What type of entrepreneurs are you seeing more of as you continue to work? Is there an industry that you've seen that women are building more businesses in? And then I'm also curious, part two to that is, if someone is starting a business and they're just in infancy stage and they're evaluating what type of businesses to start, are there businesses that you've seen that have high profitability?
I wouldn't say I've seen a specific boom per se, but I would say I think anything related to like coaching and courses or anything like online based, like that has definitely been, I would say, the shift and pivot over the last couple of years. This year, I would say there's definitely, I wouldn't say it's more of new businesses, but what I'm seeing in existing businesses is they're shifting to AI and teaching more about AI and learning about AI, because that is definitely a trend that we all need to capitalize on. And I love my Chatty G, and my Chatty G loves me.
I know, I've been seeing, I love mine too.
Yes.
It's a relationship at this point.
It is. It really is. Like,
it's like my phone. I can't survive without it.
Exactly. So I would say I've seen like that shift in, there's a lot of entrepreneurs in my circle who are not, I would say, like techie people, but they're literally have been diving into this AI world and teaching about AI. So I'd say that's a trend. In terms of like what businesses are most profitable, online-based businesses are automatically more profitable than your brick and mortar. And once a client, I'll say, just speaking from the clients I've worked with, when a client comes to me and they have a brick and mortar, like that's an entirely different business model, an entirely different profit model, and it requires much more, I'll say, diligence on the numbers and running the numbers and being tighter with the cash flow, because you have a lease and that's not like a 1-year lease. It could be a 5-year lease. So it's not just like, let's plan for today or let's plan for this year. It's let's plan for the next 5 years. So the minute you say yes to a brick and mortar, your profitability is already adjusted, versus if you have an online business, yes, you're going to invest in a lot of things. You're going to need a social presence and all that jazz, like the online digital visibility. But your overall operating costs are a lot lower than if you had a brick and mortar.
When you increase profitability for business owners, can someone create a business without having a social presence? Because that is profitability. The more you show up, a part of profitability.
Yes.
How do you navigate that, and how do you coach women to get over that fear, especially if they're service-based?
Can you build it without a social presence? I don't know if you can in this day and age. I don't know. If anyone has done it, please let me know.
Yeah, come speak to us.
Yeah, please show me the ways. In terms of getting over it, I would even say this is something I still struggle with. Like, I don't like being seen.
Girl, I've been seeing your videos.
I don't. You don't understand. I don't. This is actually, when I think of my biggest block, we're talking real right now. One of my biggest blocks in my business is being seen and being visible. I don't like it. Like, don't look at me. Like, let's just like hear my voice and like close your eyes. I don't like being visible. What has helped me get over it is realizing that I can't make change and impact if I'm not seen. And sometimes we have to realize that it's not about us, that we've been given these gifts and talents for a reason. And it's really not about us. It's about pouring these gifts and talents into the world so we can make change and so we can make impact. And so just having that has helped me, but also just going back to what I was talking about earlier about the legacy. Like if I'm not here, there's no legacy. Then I might as well just go get a job. I might as well go back and like work a 9 to 5, because what's the point? So I always say to my clients, if you've chosen this path, there's something in your heart that has ignited in you to do this. If you feel that calling, like it was placed in you. I can't do what Huda does. Like that's your calling. That's placed in you. And so if you feel that, it's almost like you have this duty to go in and fulfill it and just see where it goes, but know that it was placed in you from above, whoever and whatever you believe in is above. But I always say, if it's placed in me, I can't fail because it was placed in me. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for this dream.
It's given.
It's given. And so if you really believe that, put yourself out there. Who cares of what people think? Who cares of if you fall and stumble, fail? Sorry, not fail, but like fumble or whatever it is.
And fail over and over again,
true.
and get up, get up 5th, 6th, 7th time, however
that's
long
where
it
you
takes.
learn.
Yeah, and I'm learning that too. Like nowadays in business, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think there's a way to run and operate and build revenue as a business without showing up online. And if the business is just you have to treat it as a business activity. And find ways to either get comfortable, even if that means not showing up on camera, video, find other ways. But once you start hunting for solutions, there's tons of solutions around it, right? But I am finding the more women I talk to, that is a big piece of now a business activity and interaction that must be present. And a lot of women struggling with it because we all have all of these other things that we already need to work on, much less now showing the world, here it is, here's me, here's what I'm doing. I don't look good from this angle. My voice doesn't sound great. And it's hard. It's very hard, right?
It is. And I'll say this was just coming to me. When you step out of that comfort zone, you actually might find something you love to do. And I say this from my own story. I hate it. Like when I say I do not like being seen, I used to hate having to just talk, like public speaking. Like I would literally shake, literally like literally.
Are you serious?
Right? Yeah, like literally.
The person that just ran a whole summit.
And this is my point. Prior to my business, I was an accounting manager at Canadian Tire, and I would have to like run these meetings, our month-end meetings. And sometimes they would be like big meetings with other managers, and I wouldn't say anything. I would literally not. I would just sit there. If anyone called on me, I would hope and pray that they just forgot my name. Like I wouldn't say a peep. When I started my business, I realized I have to get over that. And I put myself out there. I said, when I was first asked my very first speaking engagement, I was like, I don't know what the heck I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it. And I just kept saying yes. And I kept saying yes. And I kept saying yes. As scared as I was, as like shaky or as sweaty as I was, as soon as it was done, I'd run to my car and be like, oh my gosh, like let it all out. But I kept saying yes. And so what you're seeing in this conversation is me saying yes to the fear, is me saying yes to the discomfort, is me going home and crying to my husband like, oh my gosh, I just failed that thing. Like, what are they going to think? And then coming back and saying yes again and coming back and saying yes again. And so you see me at the summit speaking, but no one knows how long it took for me to get there. And no one sees the fears that I have to keep even at the summit. Like, girl, behind the scenes, I was like, all right, let's do this. Let's do this. Like still, but you keep saying yes. And I think that's the beauty of entrepreneurship that we miss, is that yes, it's scary. And yes, you're going to face some very uncomfortable things, but you actually don't know like what you might fall in love with, like what you actually might develop, or skills that you thought you were bad at that like are actually your God-given talents. And I would have never known that if I wouldn't have said yes to being an entrepreneur, but also if I wouldn't have said yes to the things that make me uncomfortable. So keep saying yes, because these conversations, like I would not be sitting here right now.
That's like really hitting me right now, because I would have never thought that you being on stage, that's who you were. I know actually a lot of women that have really beautiful gifts and it shines through one-on-one, but they're just so paralyzed by fear. And a lot of it more than half is the judgment of others, right?
Yes.
And I was going to go back because I think you mentioned this before, but I didn't get a chance to touch on it. Age and money, right? The idea that we can restart, repivot, redesign, but age often holds a lot of women back because, we're not only are we not good enough, it's too late. What are you finding when you speak with women? Do you find that comes about with new entrepreneurs or even seasoned entrepreneurs? And how do you reframe your mind from letting that get in the way of building a business, starting a business, just starting anything?
Yeah, I definitely would say I see it a lot. And I think it doesn't even depend on how old you are. Like even my clients are 27. They're like, oh my gosh, I should be farther along. I'm like, girl, if I was where you were at 27,
let's change trade places.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, I wish. So I do think that's something that we do face as women. I think it's just this whole plague too of like, I should be further along. I should be further along. No matter what age you're at, you think you should be further along. And that's just us living in like the gap of it all and literally living in our blocks. I always feel like we have so much life to live. Like my mom retired recently and I'm like, you're 65. You still have like 20 years left of life. Like that's a lot of time left.
It's so true you say this because, even I'm like, oh, I'm entering my 40s, but I look at it, I'm like, there's possibly another 40 fucking years to still go at this thing, but you forget that because it's almost like you think that life is ending at 40 or 50, but you're not realizing that, especially now, we're actually redesigning the entire age gap that our parents went through, but we're going through now. That 40s look different, 50s look different. And heck, a lot of successful people built businesses in their 40s and 50s. So why is that not normalized?
Exactly. And I think we're starting to normalize it more, but I think as women, we have to own that. Like, who cares how old you are? Like, you have so much years left. And the thing is, where my mind goes is, like, do you want to pass away and just say you never did? Like, if this business that I have right now fails tomorrow, at least I can die and say I tried, And for me, that's enough. Like, I think sometimes we're so focused on that end outcome and we're like, if it doesn't look like this at the end, then it wasn't worth it. But we're forgetting it's the journey that makes it worth it. It's not the end outcome. It's
100%. I was also going to say that I think there's like this new chase in business, especially because you can see everything online, that your business has to be a multi-million-dollar business. But sometimes that's not only is it not the goal, but are you putting expectations and goals for your business because of what you're seeing? Is that truly what you want? Did you just want to start a side hustle or a business because you wanted to do something you love and give back to the world? Is it okay to make like $200K profit instead of running a $5 million company with 15 employees and you have so like really getting deep within yourself to understand what type of business do you want to build. And I think we're not asking the questions because you see this glamorous business online and everyone doing the thing that you're not even actually putting milestone. And this happened with us. Like when we were building the girls trip, like the first thing my mind went to is, okay, we're going to raise money and we're going to build this massive travel company. And me and my sister are opposites. She's a co-founder and she's like, Hora, maybe it is a side business and we make a little bit of money and we do something we love. And it took me a while to like go from, do I want to build a massive business to, is this a feel good business that makes us money? And it's been like back and forth, but no one told me that. It's just something I saw. So I just, imitated what I was seeing and thought that that's what I wanted too. And it took me a while to be like, you know what? I love traveling to 2-3 countries a year and that's more than enough. It makes me good money and I'm happy instead of running 15 different trips and not being away from my family and, like all these other extra things we throw at ourselves.
It's so true. I don't think we ask ourselves enough. Going back to the Money Manifesto, the question you need to ask yourself is, what do you want? And we don't, Bob Proctor talks about this, we don't know what we want. Like we don't.
We look at other people and take their.
Yeah, like what do you want? And also, what do you want, not what you think you can get. A lot of the times when it comes to, especially our money mindset, we're like, oh, well, I think I can get this house. But what do you want? No, I want that house. So if that's what you want, go after that. But we're so busy selling for what we think we can get, and we're not actually asking ourselves, like, what do we want? And creating that.
Ask yourself, please, listening to this, maybe take a moment, a few minutes out of your day before you go to bed. If you're driving, just take a moment to ask yourself, what do you want in life? And I think when you ask yourself that, you become more aligned with what you want versus what other people want for you.
Yes. And can I add a mindset tip on this?
Please.
Okay. I can't take credit for this. This is actually, I learned this. I'm going through Bob Proctor's coaching program, but this exercise forever changed my life. So you write down what you want, like actually what you want, not what you think you can get. And then you write down, what have you been expecting in your life up until this point?
Okay. Give me an example of that.
Okay. Let's say you want a house. Make it easy.
Okay.
What have you been expecting? You've been expecting that let's say you rent right now. You want to buy your first property. So I want a house. What have you been expecting? That I'll always rent, that I'll always struggle, that I'll never have enough money, that I'll never build wealth, that I'm not worthy. Your expectations live subconsciously. Your wants live consciously. And so a lot of the time, even though we're not saying what we want, when we do get to say what we want, what we're expecting in life is totally the opposite. And so if you actually do that exercise, what do you want? What have you been expecting in your life up until this point? You realize they are polar opposites. And what you expect is what you attract. Because that's how you're actually vibrating energetically.
Whew,
so
that's a good one.
It's one thing to say what you want, first step, absolutely, but you have to actually expect that you'll get it. What's happening most of the time, especially when people are looking at society, their bank account, whatever, their business, they're expecting something different. And that's how they actually operate life.
That's so good. I haven't heard it this way before. Yeah. So I'm almost thinking, do people then say what they want, but that's more hopeful? It's like a dream. And then in reality, their expectations is like, oh yeah, but like, I'll be renting forever.
Yes.
But like, yeah, I want a house, but no.
Yeah, this is what I'm really expecting. Deep down to their core, subconsciously. And it's all rooted in their subconscious identity. And you can never outperform your identity. So if you already see yourself as a forever renter, you'll never see yourself as a homeowner. And you can never outperform that. And so you have to know what you want, but you also have to know what you expect so you can try to align your wants and expectations. That's all mindset work, but it's
that's
so
good.
key.
Yeah, that's really good. Thanks for leaving that at the end. But before we finish, I don't want to leave that at the end, even though that's very powerful. I want to know from you, when you think about your life now, building a business, working hard, you've got a daughter, leaving a legacy. And, I find one of the reasons that women are pivoting to the next level is because we really are thinking a lot deeper and redefining what we want out of this life. And wealth, and I was having this conversation with the last guest, money and wealth are two different things.
Yes.
Wealth is almost like the richness in life, right? Like it can mean so many different things to so many people. And this is the point of the podcast and the brand is redefining what a wealthy woman is. So if you could take a moment to think about what is your wealthy life in the chaos, in the mess, in the building, the end, the middle, what does true wealth mean to you and how does that make you a wealthy woman?
I think true wealth for me would just be actually living the life I envision on a day-to-day, even on a day-to-day basis. So what I mean by that is being able to have the time and capacity with my daughter, being able to pour into myself, being able to pour into my marriage, regardless of what money's in the bank account, like just being able to show up so fully as me, but as me in these different aspects of my life where I feel like I'm pouring out, but I'm also receiving in. I'm having these moments with my daughter that when you feel like time has stopped, doesn't matter what's in our bank account. Doesn't matter if we were renting this couch and we're all sleeping on this couch. That doesn't matter. But I'm here with her, or I'm pouring into my business and I'm getting to work with these incredible women. Doesn't matter what's in the bank account, or I'm pouring into my husband, my family. That for me, that would be wealth. It's just being able to live this life as I've envisioned it, the way that I pour out and I receive in. even if literally I'm living on the couch. Like, you know what I mean? Like that is it for me.
Thank you for being a part of our show and for showing up here, Vanessa.
Thank you for having me.